Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion. Happy Wednesday to you. We're not even halfway through the week yet, and I am pretty drained. I mentioned to you that I am a trainer, and this week is a rare week for me because I'm leading trainings all 5 days. I've done two already, two different ones tomorrow, Wednesday. When you get this, it will be Wednesday, still Tuesday here. I will be leading the first day of a 3-day training. So, as I mentioned yesterday, I might be recording a lot this week because I need to get to bed. I'd like to say early, but it's not even super early right now. I just don't want to get to bed too much later. Well, let's begin, as we always begin, by realizing, recognizing, celebrating, and proclaiming in all that we do that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So I wanted to take a little bit of a different tact or different theme, topic, conversation this evening before I get to the Psalm, which is Psalm 35. And this was something that came up for me this evening at Whole Heart Tuesday. I've shared this before. That is a Tuesday night gathering that the church I attend has, kind of book club, faith sharing, discussion group, and just a really important place for me to be, and a place I've been now for more than a year, maybe even a little longer than that. And this evening, I was expressing gratitude for the job role that I am in. And I shared with my friends and my brothers and sisters in faith around this little table this evening at how, perhaps ironically, I can speak more fully from my heart, my gut, my faith, my spirit in a secular position for an agency that is a nonprofit that has a deep commitment to recognizing and realizing the potential of all people. That's part of our mission statement. Much more, I can be myself and be honest in my faith, be true to who I am, than when I was teaching religion in Catholic high schools, especially the more end part of the 18 years that I was doing that. And I think that says a lot about where churches are these days, many churches, denominations, right? But also, I think that for me, it's a reminder that whenever and wherever we are talking about living, acting on and through and in and with love, God is present, right? Because in the first letter of John, we hear God is love, and whoever knows love knows God. So, again, on days like today, when I talk about the 5 values that the agency has, the top one being love, I believe, even though I'm not using the words, that I'm talking about God, because God and love are intertwined and inextricably linked, y'all. I was also thinking, and I wanted to introduce something. I've been wanting to talk about this and introduce this for a while. Tonight feels like a good night to do it, in part because of this conversation that I shared from earlier on Tuesday evening. And it has to do with ordination. And I've shared here before and will share when I write my memoir, my spiritual memoir, that I was in seminary and I was in the process for ordination as a United Methodist elder. And what I recognized, and that fell apart, that broke apart, and there's a whole story there, and I might tell that in my memoir. But nevertheless, that was almost 15 years ago now, and what I have learned is that I still, even though I don't have a calling to formal ordination, I still can be a spiritual even sacramental leader in the communities where I am, in my work community, I hope here in the Substack community, in my church community. And I think that there is a sense of holiness for sure in that. And to kind of represent that and symbolize that, I want to use this item right here. This is a scarf. It's actually a Palestinian themed scarf, a really dear soul that I'm getting to know and becoming a sister in the resistance and faith. She makes these, she knits these as prayer shawls. So it looks kind of like a scarf, but it really is designed to be a prayer shawl. But what I want to use it for, y'all, is a stole, right? And as much as I can remember to do this, I'm going to use this when I make these podcasts. What I think is so unique about a stole, even compared to, in contrast to a collar, right, is when a minister, a priest, somebody who's ordained wears a collar, it's really, I think, meant to be a sign in the mingling of the world, if you will, of this special role that they have. Putting on a stole is something I think related, but very different in the sense that it is mindfulness and intentionality, right? Before a minister performs a sacrament or before a minister goes into some type of intentionally, mindfully, actively holiness of recognizing God's presence, they put the stole on, right? And I've seen this recently, not this one, but a stole in protests, in rallies. You see that. And I have great respect for that. You know, that the minister who puts that on before going to a rally is not only saying, you know, I am a person of faith, I have something unique in that way, but they're also recognizing that the protest, the rally, the march is a sacred act. It is a godly, holy act, right? So in a place that maybe is my ministerial place, I want to recognize that by putting the stole on and using this and saying thank you and honoring this dear friend. All right, now let's talk a little bit briefly about the next psalm. It is, again, one in a series that we've heard before, Psalm 35, in which the psalmist is talking about the enemies and what the enemies do and smiting the enemies. And we've heard this before. This one's a little bit different, though. And I'll point that out here in just a second. Before that, though, I mentioned that we want to talk about animals, like where animals appear in the Psalms. And this one has mentioned twice of wolves, right? It says, when I was wounded and limping, the enemies, surrounded me like a pack of hungry wolves, happy for the kill. They ripped and tore at me with vicious lies from their mouths, right? What an image, right? And then a little bit lower, further on in the psalm, the psalmist says, do not let them crow, the enemies, like a rooster over me. I like that. Two animals, right? One is a verb, to crow, right? And then the other is the animal itself. So again, I think this is just a reminder that I'll try to point out as we go through the Psalms. But the part I want to read is something different that stood out for me in this psalm. And it is a sense of empathy and connection with the enemies that are being described, right? So I'm just going to read a few verses here from, this is from verses 12 through up to 15. 15 is what I just read you. So this goes up to, I won't read 15 again, but 15 is what ends this. So here is what the psalmist says. I'll start with actually verse 11. Vengeful witnesses have risen against me. They question me about things I know nothing about. For my good, they reward me with evil, leaving me like a hollowed out tree. Even so, when they were sick, I wrapped myself in a rough buffalo hide to show my sorrow for them. I humbled myself and ate no food, and the desire to pray returned to me again and again. I walked about mourning for them as if they were my aunt or uncle. I was bent over in sorrow for them as one would grieve for a mother. And how did these enemies respond? Well, that's the verse I read to you. But when I was wounded and limping, they surrounded me like a pack of hungry wolves, right? So again, y'all, I think this is, I don't know that we've seen this before, where even in the midst of crying out to God to deal with vengeance and retribution against the enemies, there is a sense of sorrow and sadness and mourning and compassion for those enemies, which they reject, right? But nevertheless, the psalmist does it. And again, I think this is such a model for us to be reminded of how when we are being persecuted, or when we see insanity or cruelty like we certainly see around us, that we can't shy away from it. We have to feel a sense of compassion and sadness for those people and mourn for what they are missing, call them out for what they are doing, but to do it in a way that is compassionate and recognizes their humanity as well. I want to close with this little prayer. I like this. It's from the Celtic book. You who put beam and moon and sun, who put fish in stream and sea, you who put food in earth and herd, send your blessing up to me. Bring forth the warmth, the tears, the laughter from our repressed, frozen ground. Bring forth loving, healing, forgiving to our fretting, festering wound. Bring in light and truth and singing after dark and frigid years. So yeah, we cry out for light and truth and singing in the midst of dark and frigid times. Literally, all that snow we got is not going anywhere. It has not been above freezing since then. And certainly spiritually and politically in current events. All right, y'all. Time to get to bed. Blessing and good. Be bold. Hold fast, y'all.